You are about to enter the Create Unknown, and hopefully you come out of this a little bit stupider, which will actually make you smarter. If you saw the most recent Vsauce 2 video, you know exactly what I mean. So make sure to follow us over at patreon.com/thecreateunknown. It's free to follow. We're almost done with the new website, and we have some non-podcast content on the way. Don't forget that 100% of Patreon goes to producing this show and back into the TCU community, except for what Kevin spends on old Sony Discman. Listen to the whole episode to find out why. Patreon.com/thecreateunknown. The link's in the description. There are winners and there are losers. Let's start with the losers. Kevin, you are a loser.
Hey, welcome to The Create Unknown. I am Kevin Lieber. With me, as always, is Matthew Tabor. Matthew Tabor, tell me something.
We are in a time in which heroes emerge, unexpected heroes, very much like the way Bilbo Baggins, emerges in The Hobbit and Frodo emerges in the Lord of the Rings trilogy. Would you agree that we're in one of those periods of human history?
Yeah, it's very archetypal. I think that we need, yes, unsung and hidden heroes to step up and save the day.
That's why I want to tell you about a group of heroes in the United Kingdom. The people behind the fetish website MedFate UK have donated all of their medical equipment that they use for making fetish videos with medical themes to the United Kingdom's National Health Service. They have this stockpile of things like gowns used in their pornography videos, masks, all of this. And they've put it all together to help save lives.
Okay, well, first of all, I hope that they sanitized it thoroughly. Like very, very thoroughly in like one of those decontamination chambers that you see in like space movies. Secondly, how much of this could there possibly be? Like, I'm not trying to undersell this, but do they really have like that much equipment?
No, they don't. And they said that they didn't. They said that they don't keep a whole lot on hand. I mean, I think it's the same as any other production's prop room and wardrobe, stockpiles. So you don't need very much. And with things like scrubs and all of that, you're going to have a couple sets. But they received a request from the NHS that it was sounded to me like a very broad one that went out to all sorts of businesses, basically saying, if you have anything useful for us, we'd love to take it. And they responded to that with the little bit that they had. So MedFate UK, which is not a sponsor of the Create Unknown, despite being highlighted here, have risen to the occasion. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Eagle brand, don't worry.
Yeah, you're not being usurped here. But
No.
hopefully they can still, make some sort of content without the nurse uniforms. Although I think they still have some options, available to them.
They could switch to things like psychiatry, psychology, counseling. I mean, nobody has a uniform for a therapy session, do they?
No, you just need like a chaise lounge and a Sigmund Freud beard.
Yes.
A little notepad.
Yeah, so that'll be interesting to see if they have to make a strategic shift to different kinds of medical services to fulfill the demands of their customer base.
Yes, which may or may not be increasing. And that's definitely the topic of today's episode is what is going on online? Where is everybody? Matt, where is everybody? Because I don't know. I don't have the answer. What is everybody doing right now?
Well, I know where they are. They're generally at home. Okay. We know that. And that's what makes this so puzzling. Because we know they're stuck at home, just like we pretty much are. but we don't know what they're doing. What are you doing? If you're listening to this show, what are you doing with your time?
What am I doing with my time is I'm just doing the same thing we've always been doing. Although I think we're actually doing a little bit more. We've been doing a live stream pretty much every week. We just had a live stream on Thursday where we tier ranked Smash Brothers characters, which was definitely interesting because you didn't know about 80% of them. I didn't know many of them because I'm not a Smash person. So when it came to like Fire Emblem characters, I just called them all Marth. I had no idea how to discern one from the other, even though I've played a lot of the Fire Emblem games and I like those. But we did we did crown Isabel as the champion, which was a surprise to me going into it. But Isabel was the overwhelming favorite. But so
Isabel was the people's champion by vote. Yes. And I do want to say that I was so clueless about this. I tagged in Mora for maybe 20 minutes look, if I have absolutely nothing to offer, I can grab anybody in the world and sit them down in this chair, and they're at least it's not possible that they're going to be less useful than me on this topic.
I think she tier ranked somebody just based upon liking their cape. Which
yes. Was it Ness? Ness went to A tier just on the most arbitrary thing.
Yeah, something like that. She liked the, I think she liked Ness because the baseball bat, and he reminded her of Smalls from,
The Sandlot.
From Sandlot. Yeah.
Yeah, but that was good. So we had some expert rankings, and then we had some fairly arbitrary rankings, but it was it was actually really cool because so many people had played the game. We sometimes you obviously knew a lot more than I did, but we sometimes knew a little bit about it. But somebody in the chat always knew. I mean, the amount of people who must play Smash Smash Brothers is huge. It was pretty cool to pop somebody up and then see the live chat explode with opinions on the gameplay in Smash for that character, the significance of lore. If it was a Donkey Kong type, you've got almost 40 years, I guess, of outside factors to consider. So it was actually really pretty interesting and cool to follow along with.
Well, and that's just kind of like one of the things that we've been doing to try to interact with more of our community. But I have this weird sense that a lot of communities are just silent right now. I mean, Twitter seems almost completely dead silent. There are not a lot of YouTube creators whom I follow that seem to be working on videos or at least releasing videos right now. I mean, you mentioned a lot of people play Smash. I know that a lot of people are playing Animal Crossing right now because that just came out within the last week or two. But
yeah, yep.
I mean, that's still going to be a small portion of people. And I've seen a lot of bread being baked, but like, how long does it take you to bake bread, and how much bread can you make? So like, what is everybody doing?
I kind of don't know. You mentioned how things are pretty normal for you, and you've actually ramped up, not even just podcast related things and spending more time doing live streams and all of that, but you've got, let's see, I'm thinking of the math on this. Yeah. By the time this podcast comes out, you'll have a new video out, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And is it going to be the longest one ever? If not, it's really close.
It will be close. It'll be up there. Yeah. I mean, I think the script was close to 2,000 words.
Yeah.
I've also
which is like 30% more, if not higher than most. I mean, the general rule, by the way, on that kind of thing, like it's pretty close that about 100 words of scripted material is going to turn into about 1 minute of video. And I think that's a pretty solid rule of thumb. So when you look at 2,000 words, you're like, well, it's going to be 20 minutes, depending on any demos and this and that. So that's a huge video for a channel like Vsauce 2. And I think it really was possible because a lot of other things have slowed down for the last few weeks, and there's just more time to dive deeper into a topic.
Oh, that definitely is the case, because I remember, you and I talking a couple of weeks ago about putting this video out, and there just seemed to be like, well, why rush it kind of thing. There's always kind of like
Yeah.
more to learn. There's more research. There are more angles to take on it. So why not like take the time, take this time. We have the time. Not much else not much else is happening that's going to come suddenly like into our laps from the outside, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I mean, that when life is normal and everybody's doing things, that can happen at any moment. You get an email and all of a sudden you drop everything because this opportunity has arisen, and that requires a lot of our attention. That's not going on right now. There's nothing coming in from anywhere, really.
Nope. There are not going to be any big surprises. There's no phone call that says, "Can you make a spaghetti chair in Italy in 7 days from when I hang up the phone?" That's not happening right now.
No.
The notice on going to Armenia when I did that, how long was that? That was like 5 days or some crazy thing.
Yeah.
Even like a sponsor deal that might pop at the end of the month is not popping right now. It's when the 20th of the month hits and they're like, oh, we've got this opportunity, but it's got to be done by the 31st. That's not happening right now at all. And this video that's coming out is a soft reflection of that, because in normal times, I think it would have been half that length. It would have been not necessarily a quick and dirty treatment of the topic, but it would have not gone down a few rabbit holes that we had the time to go down.
That's absolutely true. So, ultimately, hopefully the content is better and people get more out of it for sure. But the fact is, it also took longer. So it was a longer gestation period of me also not putting anything out. So I'm also a part of this problem, I guess, that we're trying to detail, where we're saying like, why isn't anybody making anything? And it's like, well, Vsauce 2 hasn't put anything out in a while because we've just delayed, not due to anything other than just working on it more, but we've delayed the release of this video. When you talk about ramping up, I also put together a playlist for YouTube Learning because...
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
That was another thing that I've done lately during this time, was that, the YouTube Learning channel is putting together these playlists while people are home so they can educate themselves and find it easier to do so. And I put together a playlist of just of some of my favorite probability videos, for YouTube, and hopefully people will enjoy that. But, that's another thing that I've just been trying to do everything that I can, at least during this time, to be as productive as possible. But it still raises the question to me, what are other people doing with their time? And I don't know.
Well, Ben W., who does some producing on this show, has some answers for us, some quantifiable insights, some real data about how people are spending their time. And some of it's not surprising. Some of it is. There are winners and there are losers. Let's start with the losers. Kevin, you are a loser. In one way, and you're a winner in another. So you've lost because podcasts are getting slammed. Okay, they're getting slammed big time. It's really tough to get accurate data on this kind of thing, because you're talking about shows that vary in viewership tremendously. Okay. YouTube is like this, podcasts are like this, everything is. So everything is kind of a guess, and we have to trust the aggregate data that comes from the places that track on a meta level. And it looked like podcast viewership was down 30 to 40%, or listenership rather, 30 to 40% a couple weeks ago. I don't know how recent that data was. I don't think it was up to the day. I think it was probably delayed by 2 weeks, but that's a massive, massive hit. We've taken a mild hit, but kind of not, which is awesome. It's a huge testament to the creative audience still wanting to do their thing. But most podcasts, if you got some crime podcast, you've probably dipped. And you'd think with all this extra time, why wouldn't you listen more? I think we talked about this in the last episode or live stream about how things like commutes are gone. The time when you're listening to a podcast has been removed from your life for many people. So that's going to be a dip. But the things that fit with home isolation are varying kind of widely. Snapchat has about a 50% increase in video calls. So that's pretty significant. Total internet activity, hits on websites and things like that, appears to be up about 60%. This is all actually less than I expected. Streaming is across the board. Are you streaming more than you used to?
No, I don't think so. I don't think I'm streaming anymore. That's the weird thing, and I guess why this is confusing to me. And I'm an outlier, and I'm weird, and that's why, like I'm not saying that I'm confused because I just don't understand the difference between a normal person's life and mine because I only know my own experience. Okay, my own experience is almost exactly the same right now.
Okay.
I work on stuff. I work on the Curiosity Box. I work on Vsauce 2. I work on the Create Unknown. And then to decompress, I play video games, spend time with my wife, and will occasionally watch, something streaming. It is exactly the same. The only thing that's a little bit different is we've been live streaming more just because I've been wanting to, hang out with the TC Universe people more than, and have had that extra time, I guess, just because there haven't been surprises, like we mentioned earlier, coming in that have required my attention. But
we also planned on doing that before the virus. Like we decided in January or something like that, that we just wanted to do more live streams. So it's not like that's a pure reaction to all of this. That factors in. We were like, okay, yeah, we definitely have to kick this into gear a little sooner than we thought and do more of it because we have some extra time, they have some extra time, and we want to do this. But it wasn't a kind of like COVID response plan.
No, but I think that the nature of what's happening right now has allowed that to happen more frequently than I thought. I thought for sure we would be able to do one live stream a month. I think we've done a live stream every week almost for like the last 3 weeks. Like we've been doing that a lot and crushing it and having a lot of fun with it. I really like doing it. So thanks to everybody who has come to those. And I hope that, more of you listeners will join us for the next one. But I just have like a kind of a meta question, I guess, about how people use the internet. Okay. Is it, and maybe it's not just the internet, maybe it's entertainment in general, but do people use entertainment? Like, are we learning that people use entertainment like YouTube as a distraction or like a decompression mechanism from the routine of their life? So like you're at work 9 to 5, you come home, you do YouTube for an hour, you eat dinner, whatever. With this disruption of not having that routine, do you cut out that element? Because
I see.
Yeah, like I'm saying, like is that type of thing cut out now because you're like, well, I don't really care. There's so much uncertainty in the world. The last thing I want to do is sit around and watch some, commentary video about some frivolous YouTube drama. Like, does it make YouTube seem less important? Is, I guess, my question.
I wish we had better data on this stuff because my sense immediately is that there are a couple different groups of people with this, and there are a few who are jumping more into things like YouTube and others that are pulling away for the reasons that you're talking about, that it just doesn't fit anymore. So other people, are cutting back for the same reasons or same impetus that a different group, well, I mangled that a different group is doubling down on. And YouTube specifically is pretty interesting because Ben and I were looking at the different streaming stats, the options there from Netflix to YouTube, Hulu, and Amazon. And there's a lot of variation there. Now, this data is not great to me because it's about 2 weeks old, which is kind of the best we can do on this. And it's also worldwide, and we've seen such radical differences in responses to this. So even in the U.S., some places went on full lockdown way before others. Some countries have jumped into that game, more quickly than others. So it's not apples to apples. But looking at YouTube, it's actually increased, I think, percentage-wise. Minutes on YouTube has increased less than most of the others. It's about 25%. That's really significant. That's a huge boost. But when you look at something like Netflix, it's more like 60% increase. Hulu is about 50%. Amazon, which I guess is Prime and also their pay-to-play stuff, is 40%. And I think that speaks to places like Netflix being able to offer you 10 hours of something. You can binge whatever and just take a huge block of time out. YouTube doesn't do that. It's, 10 minutes at a time or whatever. So that's a really interesting phenomenon too. And I think it's tough to speak about why any of these numbers are what they are and doing it with such broad a brush that like it applies to everybody. I think there are a lot of different types of people responding in a lot of different types of ways.
Yeah, I think that is really interesting, and I think it makes a lot of sense actually. The fact that everything has slowed down, so your appetite for your entertainment has kind of slowed down, meaning like rather than being engaged in all of these kind of like frenetically changing things on YouTube, you'd rather just put on The Office and let that run all day, I guess.
Yeah.
And obviously with everything slowing down and people being stuck at home, there also is just kind of like this natural lull in things not happening for those people, meaning like Casey Neistat, for example, is not going to go out and create some like the next great vlog of him, who knows, doing some crazy thing on the Santa Monica Pier or something. It's like, well, that's closed.
Yeah.
He can't leave his house. So It's limiting the options of all creators as to what type of content they even make. I mean, any sort of vloggers who are used to going out in public and creating their content, well, that's not a thing anymore. So now what?
I was talking late last night on WhatsApp with one of the guys from Changer, the Australian outfit. We've mentioned before they have the Creator Generation podcast, and we were just talking generally about this stuff. And Fred pointed out that travel bloggers are kind of having to rethink things at the moment. And I I hadn't considered how devastating it must be when everything is about leaving and then you can't leave. There's only probably so much content that you can go through. I mean, there is a bunch of stuff that you can do from your house, but what do you do about the big stuff? And what do you do when you don't even have a clue when you're going to be able to resume and how you're going to be able to do it? People are doing crazy stuff. I don't know if you heard this beep about 2 minutes ago, but it was my mom texting me, and she said she called Ace Hardware. If you're not in the U.S., it's just a national hardware chain. And she said, I called Ace yesterday to ask a paint question, and they told me they sold 128 gallons of paint on Saturday. So that doesn't sound like a lot, but you've got to understand that the town that they live in has a single traffic light and like 2,000 people. So 128 gallons of paint in one day is absolutely insane, but it shows you how many people are like, hey, I'm home. Now's the time to, repaint everything, because what else am I going to do?
Well, that's why I made the joke yesterday and it wasn't a joke, that I cleaned my garbage can. I think I was on the phone with you, actually. And while I was on the phone with you, I was just kind of...
Oh, that was the noise?
Probably, yeah. I like to pace when I'm on the phone. I always pace. I cannot sit still when I'm on the phone. So, we were talking for a bit, and I was walking around the kitchen and I looked at the garbage can and I was like, this thing is filthy. I should clean this. And I did while we were talking, and now it's really clean. But I've been doing that a lot. It's just kind of like looking around and seeing like, hey, there's something that, needs to be organized or cleaned that has been going ignored for 1,000 other reasons for the last couple of months.
I've thought about doing the ultimate book project, what stays, what goes, and with what's left, how does it get organized? And that's a really tough thing for me because a lot of people accumulate books, right? Like that's not weird at all. But I have accumulations that are on topics. And, so for example, I have 2 shelves that are just things that I'm going to use related to Vsauce 2. I have a small shelf that's just marketing things, and I have probably the best book on creating and marketing fashion. I have what's definitely the best book on marketing food from small home kitchens. It's not just like a bunch of novels and I look at it and say, yeah, I want to read this again, or no, I don't want to. Because of that, looking at each book really takes a lot of time to figure out if I'm going to use this, how I'm going to use it, and if there's a better option where I should go. So that's something I put off forever because it would take me a very, very long time given the volume that I've got. And yeah, this last week, I'm like, you know what? It's book time. I've been putting this off for 8 years, but now's the time. So I get this big project DIY kind of wave that's going through. But Ben also snagged a thing just before we started recording about TV stats, and this is extremely interesting. So we talked about a lot of the streaming stuff being up 40, 50, 60%, whatever. It looks like network television, at least in the US, is up about 60%. That is tremendous. And to put that into perspective, when Hurricane Harvey hit Texas a while ago, I forget how long ago that was. We have so many Texas people in the Discord and who listen to this show, they'll know. But that was a big deal in Texas, right? Not quite Katrina level, but very, very significant. TV time went up 56% then. After a major storm that shut down New York City for days, the New York City market boosted in TV by about 45%. So it's really on TV consumption is really tracking the same way as like literal crisis times that we've had before. There's a lot of news being watched right now, it seems.
Well, I think that people are looking for answers, so it makes a lot of sense to me. I mean, especially with this, even more so than something like a natural disaster, is that people don't really know what to do, and what they should be doing really seems to change every single day. And I don't think that's anybody's fault. I think that it's just, this is such a new thing, and there's so much uncertainty around, how is this thing transmitted? How is it not transmitted? How long does it last on cardboard when you receive packages? When you go to the shopping center, when you go grocery shopping, should you wipe down all of the boxes and all of the food when you get home with, Lysol wipes? Does that help? I don't know. Nobody knows. And,
Right.
Should you wear a mask? Okay, what kind of mask and for how long? And can you wash it? Or how do you wash it? Or do you just throw it away? It's like, it's so crazy, and it is so quickly evolving that it makes a lot of sense to me that people are just looking for answers every single day. And government officials are having press conferences every single day with different people talking and different people giving their updates. And that's all that's going on TV, by the way. Everything else is reruns. They're even rerunning old sports events, like I think yesterday I was flipping through and it was like every sports channel and even some of the networks were just showing old NBA Finals games. It was like the Boston Celtics versus the Lakers in 2012 and the Spurs and whatever, which is creepy to me. Like, I first thought of it as really cool, and then I immediately was like, this is actually super creepy and literally straight out of a post-apocalyptic movie where you somehow still have television, but everybody's sitting around being like, hey, remember when there were sports?
It's got a weirdly depressing element, doesn't it? It's a reminder of how it's impossible to show people playing basketball live. There's this undercurrent. Yeah, there's this undercurrent that's like, hey, you're looking at the old thing, which was really good. It's a classic. That's why we're showing, the 96 NBA Finals. But, by the way, there's nobody playing basketball right now with anybody watching. There might be some people shooting hoops in their driveway with the other ones that they're in quarantine with and exposed with. So I'm sure there are a lot of ruckus games of horse among siblings right now. But that is the extent of competitive basketball in the United States. They might as well just run that banner across everything old.
Yeah, and that's what's depressing about it, is it's just like, the good old days when people could gather together and watch other people competitively play this game that we really like watching people play. But that's all gone now. And the other thing I wanted to bring up when I have been thinking about this is I remember at the beginning of the quarantine stuff, there were a lot of tweets and a lot of people talking about like, oh, all of like the next great discoveries or like the next great art will come out of this, because did you know that and I don't remember the stories off the top of my head because it's been a couple of weeks, but there'd be stories that were like, oh, Albert Einstein, was quarantined when he discovered, the theory of relativity. So maybe like the next great discovery will come out of this. And you and I talked about like, if you ever wanted to start a YouTube channel and like you have all the time in the world to do it, why aren't you doing it now? Or like, why aren't you working on the next great American novel that you've always said you wanted to work on? And right. I think because people have so much uncertainty in their lives that working on stuff like that is actually is harder almost than it is when you're like fully locked in and engaged in the world.
I'm torn on this because I think you're right about it. About some people responding with kind of a challenge accepted attitude and realizing that some of these elements can be an asset as opposed to a shutdown liability. But then I see a tweet like J.K. Rowling, Harry Potter-ish woman, she put a tweet out pretty much saying like, hey, it's okay to do nothing. Don't feel any pressure because sometimes just getting through something is good enough. And there's truth in that. She's done a few tweets on it where somebody talked about reading a book a day. And she's like, hey, if that's not you, don't read a book a day. Like my husband is a slow reader and just take it easy and survive this stuff. I get that point of view to some degree too. I'm seeing massive variation with the YouTubers that I know. First of all, we're hitting a point now where people who we follow regularly and in some terms know have started to get sick. We talked about the Twoon on the are real YouTubers. Do they do everything? He made the tweet that spurred that whole discussion. He actually was the first person I saw who had gotten sick and took about 2 weeks, and he came out the other side and was pretty good. Then we see FPS Diesel was next, right?
Mm-hmm.
That was about a week ago, and he kind of tweeted the difficulties of that. We just saw a video yesterday, I think it was released, that William Osman and Caretaker are now, in the mix of this stuff. I feel like it's weird. It's like, you ever watch the Hunger Games movies? When...
Yeah.
Yeah, when like at the end of each day of the competition, they shoot like the fireworks in the sky that show the people that have been, in that case, like didn't make it through the day. But I almost feel like that with creatives, where it's like, at the end of the day, there are like 3 or 4 new people who are either sick or dealing with somebody who is, or have kind of given up on doing something right now because they've lost the motivation. And the number of people who are pulling back for one of those reasons seems to outnumber the ones who are really taking advantage of this. So I think there's a motivation problem, when it's, look, if you're sick, that's a different thing, or if you're caring for somebody who is. But generally, I think there's a motivation problem here.
I do too. I think when it just feels like what's going on and people are confused, they don't have that motivation to work on stuff. That, at least that's kind of the feeling that I get. And it's fascinating to me. It really is fascinating to me to think about, because I never would have thought about things this way. But it really just kind of seems like, look, I did a video on the scapegoat mechanism a few years ago now. And part of my research for that had to do with human beings being mimetic, meaning like we copy each other. We just do. Like, that's how we survive. That's how we learn. That's how we survive. That's how we evolved, is that we copy each other. Like, for instance, I remember making the point in that video that's like, the reason that you speak the native language that you speak is because you copied that from your parents. Like,
Yeah.
like human beings, a human being in Alaska who's never met anybody that's Japanese doesn't all of a sudden speak Japanese. They can't. They don't know how to, like, it's like not, that's not a thing. It's not inborn.
With the appropriate accent as well.
Yeah. Yeah. No, we copy each other. And it's clear, it's not clear to me now, but I'm starting to think, or at least like hypothesize, that when other people aren't able to be engaged and other people aren't being productive and other people aren't, I don't know, just like you don't see them working on stuff, then you feel like, well, then why am I working on anything? Like, if nobody else is doing anything, then what's the point? Does that make sense?
What's the point?
What's the point?
That's exactly how I would describe the feeling that I've been witnessing, is what's the point? And in YouTube terms, something we didn't mention when we went through all the stats and stuff like that, ad revenue is down like 30%. We talked about things like sponsorships not popping right now. That further exacerbates the what's the point part, because it's one thing when you're driven by some creative vision, whatever, and there are a bunch of people who are, and then there are others that define kind of the path on that and the pace of their execution based on what's going to keep their operation sustainable and running. And so this video that's coming out for you in a few days, there's nothing attached to that. It's not because you need AdSense or want any dollars there. It's just like, hey, we had a lot of time to make some content, so here's some content, because that's what I do. But when there's always a compelling reason like that to make stuff, it's easier to keep making stuff. And with all of those metrics down, I think a lot of YouTubers are saying, what's the point? And I don't have an answer to what the point is right now. Why don't I wait and see how things play out and how I can respond to this properly? But this what's the point thing goes more basic too. I mean, how many times have we talked in the last month really about how days are gone? Days don't matter anymore. Like, there is no Tuesday. There is like,
yeah,
there's so little relevance to time on stuff. I generally don't know what day it is because I do stuff every day and every day is kind of the same for me. But I have a sense of when I need to pay bills, like one day a month is like a bill paying day. And that is today for me. And it totally snuck up on me because I've had a month that's like every day is just a day. It's like caveman times. And that lack of structure and points of reference in your daily and weekly and hourly life, it screws with you. It really messes with your workflow and your motivation to sit down and make a thing.
It does. It's very odd. Because, yeah, it almost seems like you need other things to do that you don't want to do in order to do the things that you do want to do. Like, is that a thing? Because it seems like a thing. It almost seems like people need, I don't know, like they need to have to go to class that they really don't want to go to. They need to go to this job that they really don't want to do, or they need to, have some sort of burden that is really annoying. And man, I wish I didn't have this burden, but now that I took care of that for the day, now I get to do the thing that I really want to do. But now it's like you don't have any of that stuff. But so do you even want to do the thing that you really wanted to do before or not? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. And this is such a foundational issue psychologically. Like this stretches into so many things, especially political theory and stuff like that, where, we're seeing this play out too with different cities and states and countries' responses. Some people look at a very tightly controlled, heavily enforced lockdown and say, I don't like this because I'm essentially being told what to do and do not have any other option. But at the same time, I kind of like this because I'm being told what to do and it's all very clear to me. So you get this weird paradox of comfort where the thing that causes you discomfort can bring it. And I remember talking to an older woman in Romania about this. I was talking to her about getting food during probably the worst times of the Soviet Union. And she was telling me, like, I hated standing in line at this one place for food. It would take 3 or 4 hours to get it. But I loved knowing that I was going to get it. And I was like, all right. It's really strange to see how that plays out mentally. It's just a foundational thing that permeates what we're seeing right now, whether it's, do I love the freedom that I've got to do anything? Do I shut down because I have that freedom? Is it better to have very serious, stark confines that I operate in? Or does that make me feel worse? And I definitely mentioned this another time, but it's why a game like Minecraft is so popular with some demographics and not others. And the popularity of it builds over time. These open world sandbox, do whatever you want kind of games are a great fit for some people right off the bat. And others look at it. And I was one that opened up Minecraft and I'm like, I kind of hate being able to do whatever I want to do. Like give me, 1-1 in the original Mario. And I know that I have to run to the right and jump over some things and get to a flagpole in a certain amount of time.
Right.
That's I don't want to say it's comforting, but like that was cool to me. I waffle. Depends on the day. It depends on the issue, on whether all of this stuff is a good thing, whether it's a bad thing, whether it's going to motivate me to do something. I talked to you this morning about a big idea that I want to execute, and a month ago, I probably don't think of that or want to do it. There are other things that I'm really shut down on. I'm just not motivated to do them. So it's a mixed bag broadly, and I think it's a mixed bag individually. I think everybody is kind of has their own response to this stuff.
Yeah, and it's surprising. It's definitely surprising to me in a lot of ways, and which is why I wanted to talk about it. But like, for instance, the idea of like you organizing your books with this time, or me like cleaning things that I've been ignoring, right? It seems, or people buying tons and tons of paint so they like put a fresh coat on their bathroom walls or whatever.
Yeah.
That sounds like a good thing, right? I mean, if people aren't spending all their time on YouTube anymore, and instead they're taking care of things that have gone kind of ignored or have taken a back seat for a while, or just spending more time with their family and playing board games, or, you know, watching Netflix together instead of doing their own separate things, then I do hope that that's a good thing that comes out of whatever it is that everybody's doing right now. But at the end of the day, I want to hear from our listeners. Honestly, like, I'm not just saying that like, oh, we want to hear from you in like a generic way. Like, I literally
drop
want
a
to
comment
know,
below.
Like, yeah,
ring the bell
below and ring the bell, like as some sort of robotic response to content creation. I genuinely want to know
too. I want to know this stuff.
Like, I did ask the Discord today, and I did get some responses from people going hiking, playing Animal Crossing, that sort of thing. But and I just see so much bread being posted on Instagram and Twitter. So I know people are like brushing up on their baking skills right now. But I want to know what everybody else is doing. Are you like cleaning out your garage? Like, what's happening?
Marco in the Discord, he's in Puerto Rico. I talked to him the other night about making cheese. He wants to make some cheese at this point, and I think that's a wise move. We're being limited on milk, which sucks. He wants to make turn a gallon of milk into 1 pound of mozzarella, which is quite easy to do. If anybody's interested, it's really easy to do, but I can't go and buy like 5 gallons of milk right now. I think the limit is 2, so that sucks. I don't know what it's like in Puerto Rico at the moment, but who knows what it's going to be like 2 weeks from now. Maybe 1 gallon, and it may be 10, and we don't have any idea how this stuff is going to play out. So I get that everybody's responses are just all over the place, and you know, think about scrolling through Twitter. You see one tweet from an authoritative source that says things are better for the 3rd day in a row in Italy, and things are turning around there, and that would indicate that, you know, times are getting better and we're going to be back to normal soon. And then the next tweet, also from a totally authoritative, reputable source, paints something grim as hell, where it's like, you know, like, you'd better have enough pasta to get through September. What do you do? What do you do? Do you buckle down and write that novel that you may or may not be able to distribute to somebody until like 2022? Like, what's the point? You know?
I don't know. I think that everybody has to figure that out for themselves. And that's why this topic interests me, and why I want to hear what people are doing with their time, because everybody's got every single Groundhog Day to themselves over and over and over again. So what is your Groundhog Day? I want to know. And
that's a good way to put it. What happens in your Groundhog Day? That's the question, the specific question that I think people should answer is at least, like, what's one thing that's going to happen on your Groundhog Day?
Let's hear
it. And
if
that's kind of an old movie, isn't it? Do we have to give a summary of what happens in that film for the fetuses out there?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, that's like 1992. Kevin, that movie is like 30 years old.
Oh gosh, it's such a classic though. It absolutely holds up. It's not one of those things where it's like it's I don't think at least that it's dated in any way. I
No,
think
it
that
isn't.
anybody could watch it and still enjoy it. But the basic plot is that it stars Bill Murray. He just keeps repeating the same day over and 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 over again. He just keeps waking up on Groundhog Day and repeating it. And
There's no way out of it. He cannot get out.
no, he can't get out of repeating the same exact day every single day he wakes up. And other than that, just watch it yourself so you can find out what happens. But it's absolutely a classic comedy.
But that is to some degree our lives right now. And it's to some degree your life. And we recognize, I think, that like Kevin and I, we're really in the minority here in terms of our daily work being unaffected. Like I feel I have to preface this every time somebody asks, you know, how are things going? Like whatever. It sounds like I'm being really blasé about it, or almost bragging that no, everything's pretty normal and it's business as usual. It's true. I mean, the days are pretty much the same, and that's an incredible privilege that I have, and I think you have. It feels jerky to say it, you know, that like, well, what is it? Well, no, just working on the next Vsauce 2 video, recording a podcast, doing whatever, not worrying a whole lot about those adjustments. But even so, a significant portion of the day is affected here, and a lot of people are in a Groundhog Day scenario. And maybe that's it. Maybe you're just repeating a day from January over and over, and that's cool, kind of like we are. Maybe you've developed a brand new routine, and you're reliving the same day that's at least new for now. Who knows? But I hope a few people tell us about this, because it would be awesome to find out what these Groundhog Days are like.
Yeah, tell us your Groundhog Day. That's our question to you. And now I want to hit some questions from you.
This is the perfect segue, because Boromir asked, what thing do you normally do but you can't because of, at the time he said social distancing, but now I'd say it's kind of full lockdown, that you really want to do the most right now?
Just
what do you miss, Kev Lieb?
Just eating food from restaurants. That's pretty much it. You know, I'm not going out to eat. Everything is home cooked, and that's good. You know, it's like the biggest first world luxury problem ever to be like, oh, I can't have like my favorite food from my favorite local restaurant. Like, okay, boo-hoo. There are a lot worse things that you would have to, people are giving up right now. A lot worse things. So I'm really not, I'm not complaining about that. I'm just answering the question. That's really the kind of the biggest thing that has changed for us.
For me, it's probably shopping for food in the way that I'm used to. So, for example, a couple times a year, I like to go to this auction it has a lot of expired food and stuff like that, and a lot of bulk food. Like they wheeled out at one point a shopping cart just full of hams. And
that sounds disgusting.
and you know, you bid on the hams and then tell them how many you want and whatever. And I love that process. And it's me. Sometimes I can drag Maura. My brother loves to go, so when we can go together, that's awesome. Things like Little Debbie snack cakes in boxes, that's cool. You can get as many of them as you want. They always have a supply. I like going to that, and I haven't been in a long time, and I don't know when I'm going to be able to go again. That sucks. I have a routine where I look at the grocery store flyers for 2 different stores and then plan, first of all, whether I need to go for anything, whether I'm going to go at all, which of the 2 stores I'll go to, or if there's a compelling reason, something is such a fantastic sale that I will end up going to both. I do that on Thursday because that's when it arrives with those deals kicking in on Sunday. I did not look at the grocery circulars last week, and it's the first time in probably 7 or 8 years that I have skipped a week.
Oh my gosh.
Not counting.
That's a big deal.
Yeah, not counting. It is. Not counting the time when I was out of the country or in, another state or something. I obviously didn't look then, but when I'm home, yeah, I skipped. Yeah, like literally Obama was finishing up his first term the last time I skipped looking at grocery stuff. So that sucks.
Yeah, it's disrupted your extreme couponing addiction. That's the saddest story yet.
Yeah, so what I'm trying to say is life is really hard.
Yeah.
Oh God. So
when you can't get your shopping cart hams, then things are bad. We have entered the apocalypse.
So Jeff Davis, Jeff asks just now, if you won the lottery, what would your first purchase be? I like this.
Oh, geez. I feel like I always have the most boring answers to this because I just want to own my house. So I'd pay off my house, Like, I just want to be financially secure. I'm like the most boring person when it comes to, I don't know, like, I don't want a sports car. It's not like, I would buy that Porsche. It's like, that's not interesting to me. My biggest obsession is like video games, and there are no real video games that are like, I'd buy that, $20,000 video game that I've always wanted.
The rare cartridge.
Yeah, the what was it? The NES World Championship cartridge. I know that Pat, the NES punk, has one. And that cart is worth like $20,000 or whatever, but I don't need that. So, I guess if I have to buy something and it's not just like pay off mine and my family's debts, which is actually what I would do. Maybe art.
Yeah.
Maybe art, like paintings, Maybe that's what I would do. Is like if I had to buy objects and not just like land and financial security, I had to like buy things. It probably would be art. Art is really expensive, like original artwork, maybe commission original artwork. I absolutely love.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Art.
Yeah. Yeah. I would want to do that, to have kind of an incubator of sorts for a lot of creatives who I know do not have the resources to execute a project that's bigger than them, or they need support to make it happen. Like, I would love to do that. I would love to do that right now. If I could. And it doesn't take a lottery win to do that kind of thing, but it does take some money to risk. And you can tell from, if you're listening to Kevin's answer here, like, this is when you can tell that your podcast hosts are old, because when it's like, oh, if you won the lottery, what would you do? That answer reduces to like, well, I'd pay bills. We are officially dead behind the eyes.
Oh, well, no, look, man, not necessarily, because you always see athletes like buy their mom a house, right? Like,
true,
and they're
yeah.
like 20 years old, and they get their first giant $1 million paycheck, and they immediately like take care of their mom or someone. So yeah. I think that's kind of like a natural, that's a natural answer. But it's not necessarily a fun answer. It's just kind of like, you take care of your family.
I was asked this question on a panel maybe a year ago, and oh God, I don't even know. Maybe it was longer, maybe it was shorter. Time doesn't exist anymore. So it was in the past, and that's the best I can do. And I answered honestly, and I will never do it again. I'm going to do it here. I will say this here, but I will never give this answer in public. My answer about a lottery win, the first thing that I would do would be to buy a very big pack of plain white t-shirts, like tagless Hanes. Cause I wear one every day, and they last a long time. And so I almost never get new ones, but when good things happen, when I come into a bunch of, money for some reason, whether it's a big invoice coming in or whatever, my first impulse is like, hey man, now it's time to get some new white t-shirts. And the people in that room thought that I was being goofy or like trying too hard to say like, hey, I'm a simple guy, like I'd buy t-shirts. And the reaction sucked. I will never tell that truth in public again.
How much did white t-shirts cost? Like do you get these like premium ones that are like $30 each? Or like, what are we talking here?
No, I recently bought 48 for $19. And I think I gave 12 to my dad. I have another 12 of them set aside for traveling, because if I go to an event or something like that, I want to wear a brand new one. And then I have 24 currently in reserve. Well, it's about 6 have been deployed. I've thrown out some old ones.
Deployed.
But yeah. Yeah.
Who talks about shirts this way? 12 have been deployed successfully. Look, dude, you could spend $200 on shirts and have them for the rest of your life. Like, that's why that answer is weird.
Probably,
you don't need $1 million to buy white t-shirts. You need like 200 for the rest of your life.
I guess, but that's how I think about it. There's a kind of a fantastic one talking about good things. There's one thing I never want anything. I just don't. I just have like no aspirations at all in life. But I thought it was cool. I was watching Pawn Stars, and this guy brought in Ronnie Van Zant's hat, which was verified to be his. He was the lead singer of Lynyrd Skynyrd, and he had a kind of distinctive black hat that he wore on stage a lot. And they valued it at something like $5,000. And that blew me away, because I was like, wow, I could have Ronnie Van Zant's hat for $5,000. Like, that would be amazing. If I had a frivolous splurge after winning the lottery, I think it would probably be that.
Yeah, that's pretty good. Some sort of like hyper meaningful token or idol.
Yeah, it's cool.
It's cool.
It's cool. Let's hit a couple kind of rapid fire. Monsieur Chinchilla wants to know, what is the weirdest dream you remember? This is 100% you, Kevlieb.
Oh, okay. So first of all, I'll preface this by saying I rarely remember dreams. I don't know why. I'm just not a person who remembers their dreams a lot. I'll say the first dream, I might have said this before on the podcast, but there are a couple of things where in my life, I don't remember if they really happened or if they were a dream. One of them was what I think was a dream, was when I was really young. And this is so boring, but I think everybody telling their dreams, that's kind of like a meme. It's like listening to other people's dreams is like the most boring thing you can do. So here's my really boring dream. This is it. I was very, very young. I smelled like pancakes and I fell down the stairs. And that was all I remember.
That's the dream?
That was it. And for some reason, I remember this my whole life, and it's so stupid.
When you woke up, did you feel like it had actually happened?
Oh, I don't know if this actually happened. Like I'm assuming it was a dream. I don't think that I actually fell down the stairs, but maybe I did. I don't know. Huh. Yeah, who knows?
Do you remember in 6th grade the lockers that you had in homeroom when they were brown and they were about a cubic foot?
Yeah.
Do you remember this? So I had a dream when I was in 6th grade that was on a Saturday, which I remember that part distinctly because of the way this plays out. And the whole dream consisted of me leaving a sandwich in that locker. And that was it. And it was so mundane that I thought it was completely real. And the whole weekend, I kind of stressed out about this. I mean, it wasn't active stress, but I was like, oh God, this sandwich is going to rot and stink on Monday when I get into school and have to open up this locker. And I opened up the locker on Monday morning and there was no sandwich in it. And it threw me, like it rocked me, because I'm like, no, I definitely had a sandwich in here. I've thought about it all weekend. And that's when it occurred to me that I'd had a dream so lame and so sucky that I could not distinguish it from reality.
Yeah. Well, that's freaky, man. And I think about that kind of stuff all the time.
It's weird.
Not just with dreams, but with memories as well. I don't know. Like,
I don't even know what's actually happened in my life at this point. Like I can't sort out what has happened and what hasn't.
It's frightening. It's very frightening. Like if you've ever read any stuff about memories when it comes to like witnesses on trial, like it's really, really, really scary. Pro tip, don't do anything illegal ever. Don't get in trouble.
Yeah.
Don't, go on trial for anything, because who freaking knows what people will think that they remember when it comes to anything. It is terrifying. And they could be completely convinced that this thing happened and it's like, it didn't, but what are you going to do?
It's crazy that at a certain point, and I think it's about 10 years, it seems to be, where you talk to people like high school friends, college friends, whatever, and it's been a sufficiently long time where you talk about this funny thing that happened, and the two interpretations, yours and the friends, just take different paths. Like you attribute certain things to different people, or one thinks it happened this way and the other thinks it happened that way. And both people are in 100% good faith believing that this is reality. And you find out that there are two realities here. And when that started to happen in my life, and it's happened with us talking about old stuff, it really underscored to me how unreliable history is. And I wish I'd had a feeling and a sense of that when I was actually studying history, because you look at a first-person account of something, a primary source of something, and there is honestly like no way to know if that was the actual reality, unless there are several different sources that corroborate the exact same thing. Anything old is pretty much suspect. It's in question, and nobody tried to make that happen. They didn't go out of their way to lie. It's not about that. I think of so many things that I've said that weren't true that I've just plain twisted it in my head and forgotten that. It's just like forgotten details that ended up, mattering to the narrative of the thing. But it's crazy and it's unsettling, and I don't mean it in a conspiracy theorist way. If you haven't had that experience yet, where you're talking to somebody about some old memory, this will absolutely happen to you, and it's a funny feeling.
Yeah. It's coming. Just wait till you get a little older. Like
it's coming. It's absolutely coming. And this goes into the last question from Baseweight, which is, if you could take a piece of technology back to yourself in high school, what would it be?
Probably some sort of music device. Like, I was going to say MP3 player, but like that's not really a thing. But when I was in high school, I had to lug around. I loved listening to music, between class and in study hall or whatever.
I always saw you with headphones, by the way. We didn't talk in high school, like our paths didn't cross at all, but my visual memory of you is like music t-shirt, big jeans, and headphones.
Yeah. That's accurate. Because I was always listening to music, and I would always lug around this gigantic portable CD player that just chomped batteries like Cookie Monster eats chocolate chip cookies. And
Discman goes brr.
yeah. And then you have to bring your like CD book so that you can like change CDs.
Yep.
And oh my gosh, was it so clunky, and the CDs would skip if you bumped the desk, and it was horrible. So I was really jealous of kids who could just have a million different, or have a Spotify account, or have a million different albums downloaded to a tiny little iPod or their cell phone or whatever. That's a huge difference than, my high school experience with the generic off-brand CD player that I got for Christmas.
And I think that has to be the rule here, is that whatever technology you have, all the things that make that technology awesome have to come with it. So, for example, you have this portable music player, but you also have the unlimited supply of MP3s that you can download in 2 seconds. Mm-hmm. So I think that's the common sense way to process this question. For me, it's my phone. It's an iPhone. I have an 8 Plus. It's not cutting edge, but what can I not do with my phone? Assuming I'd be able to do those things. I look things up on my phone constantly, all day long. I'm looking up little tiny things and keeping tabs on certain things. It used to be like back in high school, which is in the late 90s. For me, I remember waking up each day and checking my Hotmail account. Like, it was something I didn't get to do maybe another time that day. There's one shot at looking at the email that day, and maybe you checked a few times a week. Well, if you had something there worth seeing, you may not know for days. Well, with my phone, if there's something worth seeing, I know literally within 10 seconds of somebody pushing a button somewhere in the world. Mm-hmm. That's really cool. So I have access to everything. I have apps that do so many things for me. I mean, if you're in the Discord, I posted months ago a whole bunch of Soviet era industrial safety posters. Okay, I bought like 120 of these when I was in Ukraine, and you can tell from the artwork what's going on, like what the message is for that poster. That's like, watch your hands with this machine that will mash them if you're not careful, or don't wear open-toed shoes on the shop floor, or like Chernobyl juice will splatter on them. But the words on them I can't read. Well, I took out my phone and used the Google Translate app to just translate the Russian into English for free in real time. Like, it felt, I don't want to use the word magic, but it really felt like I had a magical device, because there's just nothing like that in my life that has ever existed. And to be able to have something that did those kinds of things 25 years ago would have been pretty incredible.
Yeah, so major thanks to Basewade for ending this episode with the most boomer stories that we could possibly share. Like, the amount of people listening to this thinking like, wow.
We just had a run. Yeah, we had a run of of really boomer stuff, didn't we?
Yeah, it was really, really epically boomer. So that's what life was like in the 1990s, kids.
We'd usually do some kind of cool call to action that's like, hey, check us out here, whatever. You know what? After that, I just hit unsubscribe. Save yourself.
Save yourself. It's over. It's over. Go clean your garbage cans. Go paint your bathroom.
Unring that bell.
Unring the bell.
Get a new white T-shirt. Get the sandwich out of your locker. Marvel at the power of MP3 players. It's grim. It's grim, Kevin Lieber. It's grim.
And lament the fact that you can't remember anything or distinguish dreams from reality. On that note, thanks for listening. Oh God. All right. We'll see you. We'll see you in the Discord. Tell us about your Groundhog Days. Check us out at patreon.com/thecreateunknown. I posted a picture of Matt's giant steak from our Royal Caribbean trip for the solar eclipse. If you want to check out a nice plate of meat.
it felt good to see that again. It's been a few years since I've looked at that photo, and so, yeah, it tasted almost as good eating it with my eyes in 2020 as it did chewing it in 2017.
All right, that's it. We're done. We'll see you, Space Cowboys.
We need to go.
Adios.
We'd like to thank everybody who we talk to every day in the Discord, and especially the patrons who make this show happen. Thanks to our editor Marcus Allen and to associate producers Jeff Davis, Isaac Teal, Trev's Dead, James Gallagher, Baseweight, Andrew Stimson, Keaton Sample, Jesse Robertson, Boromir, Monsieur Chinchilla, Sean Malone, Jen Mafasanti, Kevin with an E. Menard, Monahim Yogurt96, Fraken, and our newest addition, Mikhail. Thank you for signing up, Mikhail. We love it. Also, thanks to baby wrangling super producer Ben Webster. Thanks as well to Paula Lieber and the stunningly gorgeous Mo Lewitt, and to our very generous sponsor of every episode, Eagle Brand Sardines. The Create Unknown is a production of Unknown Media. Okay, bye.